Have you ever wondered why something as beautiful as kindness, often celebrated as the highest virtue, can sometimes lead to unexpected pain? In both ancient scriptures and modern teachings, we are reminded again and again, be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a battle you cannot see. This timeless wisdom urges us to lead with compassion, to offer grace in a world that so often withholds it. And yet, in the quiet solitude of your own heart, have you ever questioned why acts of genuine kindness are sometimes misunderstood, or worse, met with exploitation or disrespect? Why does it seem that those who lead with empathy are occasionally dismissed, their goodwill mistaken for weakness? This is not a new dilemma. Even the Buddha, whose life radiated infinite compassion, was not free from ridicule or misjudgment. And in the teachings of Zen, we find a recurring lesson that kindness, while essential, must walk hand in hand with wisdom and discernment. Without this balance, we risk losing ourselves in the very compassion we wish to offer others. Now, let's walk the path of one disciple. His story holds a mirror to your own. A story about the sacred balance between compassion, wisdom, and self-respect. In a peaceful and secluded monastery nestled among mountains and trees, there lived a devoted disciple known for his unfailing kindness. He believed deeply that kindness was the essence of spiritual practice, the truest reflection of the teachings he had devoted his life to studying. With a generous heart, he went out of his way to help others, carrying heavy loads for fellow disciples, offering his food to those who were hungry, and always saying yes to any request, no matter how inconvenient or unreasonable. At first, his kindness was celebrated. The other disciples admired him, speaking warmly of his generosity and selflessness. The young disciple felt proud, believing that he was embodying the essence of compassion. But slowly, things began to shift. The admiration turned into quiet indifference, and in some cases, even subtle contempt. His fellow disciples started to take him for granted. Tasks were left undone because they knew he would step in and complete them. Requests became demands. People began to speak to him more harshly, certain that he would never protest or retaliate. What once felt like honor now felt like burden. The disciple, confused and deeply hurt, found himself questioning everything he believed. One evening, weighed down by this inner turmoil, he approached his teacher, an elderly master known for his deep insight and calm presence. With sorrow in his voice, the disciple asked, "Master, why is it that my kindness has brought me disrespect? Am I not following the path of compassion as we are taught?" The old master looked at him with understanding and smiled gently. "Let me tell you a story," he said. "The tale of the river and the forest." He began, "Once there was a river that flowed generously through a vast, ancient forest. The river gave freely. Its water nourished the trees, quenched the thirst of animals, and refreshed weary travelers who rested along its banks. It asked for nothing in return and never turned anyone away. But as time passed, things began to change. The animals grew careless, muddying the water with no thought. Travelers, once grateful, began to litter and pollute its banks. The trees, growing tall and strong from the river's life-giving water, began to stretch their roots deep into the riverbed, drawing more than they needed. The river, once clear and vibrant, grew shallow and murky. At last, in pain and exhaustion, the river cried out to the forest, "Why do you all treat me this way? I have given you life. Why do you now harm me?" And the forest answered, "Because you never set boundaries, we assumed you did not mind." The master looked at his disciple and said, "Kindness is noble, but without wisdom, it invites imbalance. True compassion includes compassion for yourself. Set boundaries, not to shut others out, but to protect the clarity and strength of your giving." The disciple listened attentively. "Master," he asked, "what should the river have done?" The master replied calmly, "The river must understand this. Kindness without wisdom is like a cup that overflows. What begins as generosity becomes excess, and excess leads to imbalance. True kindness must be guided by insight. It must learn when to give freely and when to hold back, not out of selfishness, but to preserve harmony." "And how can I practice this kind of kindness?" the disciple asked earnestly. The master responded, "By learning to understand the nature of people and the world around you. People are like mirrors. They reflect what they perceive. When you show kindness without discernment, some will recognize it as virtue, but others may interpret it as a weakness. This is not because kindness is flawed, but because the human mind often mistakes silence for surrender and generosity for lack of strength." The disciple reflected for a moment. "So are you saying I shouldn't be kind?" The master shook his head. "No, I'm saying do not be kind without discrimination. There is a Zen teaching that says, when helping others, do not lose yourself. True kindness does not mean self-erasure. If your kindness costs you your dignity or inner peace, it is no longer kindness. It is self-sacrifice, and that leads to disorder, not harmony." He continued, "In ancient philosophy, we speak of yin and yang, opposite yet complementary forces. Kindness is like yin, soft, nurturing, compassionate, but it must be balanced by yang, firmness, strength, clarity. Without yang, kindness becomes fragile and easily misused. Without yin, strength becomes harsh, even cruel. The secret lies in balance." The disciple nodded thoughtfully. "And how can I find this balance, Master?" The master smiled gently, "Through mindful action. Before you offer help, pause and ask yourself, is this kindness arising from inner strength or from a desire to be liked? Does this action uplift both the other and myself, or does it enable irresponsibility? True kindness nourishes both the giver and the receiver." The next day, the master gave the disciple a task. "Go into the village," he said, "and offer help wherever it is needed. But this time, be mindful. Observe how people respond and notice how you feel. Then come back and share what you have learned." The disciple obeyed. At first, he acted as he always had, saying yes to every request, offering help without hesitation. But soon he began to notice a pattern. Some villagers received his help with sincere gratitude. Others, however, grew demanding, treating his kindness not as a gift, but as something they were entitled to. Then he remembered the master's words. When faced with unreasonable demands, he chose to respond with calm but firm boundaries, declining politely when needed. To his surprise, some people began to respect him more. They no longer saw him as a servant, but as an equal. Those who had been using him grew upset, but he realized that their anger came not from real harm, but from losing control over him. Through this experience, the disciple understood the deeper truth in his master's teaching. Kindness is a noble quality, but on its own, it is not enough. It must be accompanied by awareness, discernment, and self-respect. This wisdom invites us to examine not just how we show kindness, but why. and to consider the effects our actions have, both on others and on ourselves. True kindness is not about pleasing everyone. It is about cultivating harmony within and without. The power of boundaries. Boundaries are not walls meant to keep others out. They are expressions of mutual respect. They protect one's inner space while honoring the autonomy of others. When the disciple began to establish clear boundaries, he encountered a range of reactions. Some people became upset or resentful, while others responded with unexpected respect. This contrast reflects a fundamental truth about human nature. People perceive kindness through the lens of their own character. As the Master once said, boundaries are not rejections, they are teachings. They show others how to treat us. They affirm that our kindness is a deliberate offering, not a duty, and that our worth is not measured by our ability to say yes to every request. In this way, boundaries transform kindness from something passive into something empowered, intentional, and deeply respectful. The balance between giving and receiving. In Buddhist philosophy, balance is a central thread woven through all aspects of life. Giving, no matter how noble, must be balanced by the capacity to receive and to replenish. Kindness that flows only outward, without pause or restoration, becomes unsustainable, like a river that feeds others, but forgets to nourish its own source. The disciple learned this firsthand. His desire to uplift others could not bear fruit if it came at the cost of his own well-being. In tending to his own energy with care, he found he had more to offer: more presence, more clarity, more compassion. This balance requires mindfulness. Before giving, one must ask, am I giving from fullness or from emptiness? Is this action contributing to harmony or enabling dependency? True kindness nurtures growth for both giver and receiver. It is a shared rising, not a silent sacrifice. Compassion without attachment. One of the deepest teachings in Zen is this: compassion must be free of attachment. The Buddha taught that even the most virtuous intentions can lead to suffering if they are entangled in expectations. The disciple's early kindness was unconsciously tied to a desire for approval, peace, and reciprocity. When others failed to meet those expectations, he felt disheartened and disrespected. But under the Master's guidance, he came to understand that real compassion asks for nothing in return. It becomes an offering from the true self, freely given and unattached to outcome. In this space, even rejection or misunderstanding cannot disturb one's inner peace, because the act of kindness is no longer about being seen or praised. It simply is, and that is enough. Strength in softness. In Zen, softness is not weakness, it is strength in its most fluid form. Water, though yielding, has the power to carve through stone. Kindness, when rooted in self-respect and wisdom, is like water, gentle in presence, yet capable of profound transformation. The disciple discovered that setting limits, saying no when needed, did not lessen his compassion. It gave it direction. His kindness was no longer scattered or exploited. It became intentional and enduring. This understanding reached into every corner of his life, his relationships, his work, and his role in the community. When kindness comes from inner strength, it inspires respect. When it lacks foundation, it risks being mistaken for submission. The harmony of softness and strength creates a deeper connection with oneself and with the world. The inner transformation. In reflecting on his journey, The disciple realized that the greatest change had taken place within. The disrespect he had once experienced was not a flaw in kindness itself, but a sign of imbalance in the way he expressed it. Through the Master's teachings, he began to align his actions with clarity, self-awareness, and purpose. As he grew in understanding, he found that others began to respond to him differently, not because they had changed, but because he had. He no longer gave to gain approval. He no longer allowed his energy to be drained unchecked. He respected himself, and others began to mirror that respect. This was the heart of his transformation. It is the essence of Zen practice, that life's challenges, including the paradoxes of kindness and strength, are invitations to awaken. Through mindful reflection and conscious action, we can turn difficulties into teachings and trials into tools for growth. Integrating these lessons into daily life is not the end of the journey. It is the path itself. Integrating compassionate wisdom into daily life. To truly embody these teachings in our everyday lives, we must move beyond theory and into practice. The disciple's journey is not just a story, it is a mirror of our own path, filled with moments when our kindness is tested, misunderstood, or taken for granted. These experiences, rather than discouraging us, can become gateways to deeper insight. Here are 5 mindful practices to help ground compassion in wisdom and integrity. 1. Pause and reflect before offering kindness. Before you extend a helping hand or say yes out of habit, take a quiet moment to pause. Ask yourself, is this act rooted in genuine compassion, or is it driven by a desire to be accepted, to avoid conflict, or to gain approval? Mindful awareness invites us to act from a place of clarity, not compulsion. When kindness is offered with intention rather than obligation, it becomes more powerful, balanced, and enduring. 2. Set boundaries with love and clarity. Boundaries are not rejections, they are expressions of truth. They are not meant to push people away, but to create healthy space for mutual respect and understanding. Practice saying no with compassion and firmness, knowing that it is not an act of cruelty, but of self-honesty. By setting boundaries with kindness, you teach others how to honor your presence while preserving your inner peace. A boundary offered with love becomes a bridge, not a barrier. 3. Practice compassion without attachment. Let your kindness be an offering, not a transaction. Release the expectation of being recognized, thanked, or rewarded. The deepest form of compassion arises when we give without clinging to outcomes. When we are free from the need for reciprocation, our actions become lighter, freer, and more authentic. In this state, your kindness reflects who you are, not who you need others to be. 4. Balance giving and receiving. Just as a tree must draw nourishment from the earth to bear fruit, you too must care for your own well-being in order to sustain compassion for others. Give freely, but also receive openly. Allow yourself rest, joy, and support. A depleted spirit cannot uplift others. Self-care is not selfish. It is the foundation from which all sincere kindness flows. 5. Embody both softness and strength. True kindness holds both gentleness and resolve. Be soft like water, fluid, flexible, nurturing, but also strong like the current that carves stone. The disciple's path revealed this balance. Kindness without strength becomes fragile, and strength without kindness becomes cold. But when the two are united, they create harmony, in relationships, in service, and within ourselves. The balance of Metta and Upekkha. The Buddha taught us to master both, Metta and Upekkha. Let's begin with Metta, the radiant heart of Buddhism. Metta is loving kindness, a sincere wish for all beings to be happy, safe, and free from suffering. It is soft, warm, and unconditional. You don't offer metta to get something in return. You offer it because your heart overflows. You extend it to friends, to strangers, even to enemies. Like sunlight, it shines without choosing who is worthy. But metta alone is not enough. That's where Upekkha enters. Upekkha means equanimity, the deep inner stillness that allows you to stay balanced no matter what happens. It is the mountain unmoved by wind, the ocean beneath the waves. Where metta opens the heart, Upekkha protects it. If you only practice metta, you may love deeply, but suffer when others do not return your love. You may give endlessly, but collapse under the weight of ungratefulness. You may try to help everyone, but become broken by their suffering. Without Upekkha, your kindness becomes attachment. The Buddha taught, just as a mother would protect her child with her own life, so should you cultivate boundless, loving kindness, but with a mind that is unshaken, like a rock. That is the power of metta with Upekkha. You give, but are not drained. You love, but are not dependent. You care, but are not controlled. You help, but do not cling to the outcome. This is not coldness. It is clarity. Upekkha does not make you care less. It allows you to care without falling apart. When someone takes advantage of your kindness, Upekkha allows you to see it clearly, not as a personal attack, but as their karma, their suffering. You can still respond with compassion, but you don't need to keep saying yes to what harms you. That's the teaching. Metta is the open hand. Upekkha is the grounded spine. Without metta, life becomes bitter. Without Upekkha, love becomes bondage. Together, they create a loving heart with boundaries. So ask yourself, is your kindness rooted in clarity or craving? Are you giving from abundance or to be approved? Do you love freely, or do you need them to love you back? Take Maya, for instance. Maya was known for her kindness. At work, she stayed late to help colleagues, never said no to favors, and always put others before herself. People called her generous at first, but over time her kindness was taken for granted. Co-workers began dumping their responsibilities on her. Her polite yes became an expectation. One day, after being blamed for a task she didn't do, Maya broke down. That night she remembered a teaching she once read: metta must flow with Upekkha. The next morning Maya changed. She still helped others, but with discernment. She said no when needed, without guilt. Some people were shocked, even annoyed, but others began to respect her more. Maya learned that real kindness doesn't mean losing yourself. With metta and Upekkha in balance, her heart remained open, but no longer vulnerable to exploitation. She was kind, but also unshakably grounded. A living teaching. As the disciple learned, moments of discomfort or conflict are not signs of failure. They are opportunities to deepen our understanding and refine the way we show up in the world. When our kindness is ignored or taken for granted, we are being invited to revisit the source of that kindness, whether it stems from love or from fear. By practicing discernment alongside compassion, by setting limits rooted in care, and by tending to our own needs with honesty, we transform kindness from a reaction into a conscious force. The Master's final words echo with quiet wisdom. A tree that bends with the wind does not break, but a tree that bends too much loses its roots. Let your kindness adapt to the world, but never at the cost of your center. Stay rooted in self-respect, grounded in awareness, and nourished by truth. In that balance lies the true power of compassion. So, the next time you find yourself wondering why your kindness is misunderstood, why your open heart is met with silence or even taken for granted, pause, breathe. Remember the disciple. His journey is not just a story, it's a reflection of yours. True compassion isn't about pleasing everyone. It's not about saying yes when your soul is saying no. It's about presence, clarity, and the courage to honor both your empathy and your edges. Kindness without boundaries becomes self-erasure, but kindness with wisdom, that becomes power. Power not to control, but to stand firm, to bend without breaking, to love without losing yourself. You are not here to be everything for everyone. You are here to give with care, to serve with balance, and to protect the sacred ground within you. So let your kindness flow like water, gentle, generous, alive. But let your roots go deep, grounded in self-respect and discernment. Because when you're rooted, your giving becomes limitless, not draining, but renewing. Thank you for being here, for listening and for reflecting. If this story moved you, take a moment to like, comment, or share your thoughts. I'd love to hear how it resonated. And until we meet again, be kind, be wise, and stay rooted. Peace.